I fight for the mini-review. Adventures of Tron was a 1983 release by M Network for the Atari 2600. You play as the titular Tron, trying to capture all the bits in a never-ending series of stages full of enemies. Each screen has 4 levels with elevators on either side of them. In the center is a pole rising through gaps in each floor, and on every level there are 2 bits flying near the ceiling. The elevators are single-use, they'll only take you up 1 level. In order to reactivate the elevators, you have to cross the center point of the screen. Then you can use them again. On the 3rd level, you'll see a solar sailor moving back and forth with the bits. If you time your jump properly, it can give you a ride. Once you grab all the bits, a beam will appear in the center. Jump into it to get to the next stage and start all over again. I consider Adventures of Tron to be the 2nd best Tron game from Mattel behind Tron Deadly Discs. Fun for a play now and then. 7 out of 10. Mini Review. Beamrider was a 1984 release by Activision for the Atari 2600. In Beamrider, you play as a ship tasked with clearing an onslaught of aliens on a restrictor shield surrounding Earth. You do this by jumping your ship from beam to beam across the screen and pressing the button to shoot and destroy waves of 15 enemy saucers of different types. At the end of each wave, there's a sentinel ship that moves across the back that can only be killed with a torpedo, which is fired by pressing up on the joystick. In later waves, some types of saucers will also require torpedoes to destroy. You're limited to 3 torpedoes every wave, so don't waste them. Keep blasting wave after wave for a high score until all your lives are gone. Beamrider is an awesome game and very addictive, a must-have for the system. 9 out of 10. Mini Review. Fast Eddie was a 1982 release by 20th Century Fox for the Atari 2600. In Fast Eddie, you play as Eddie, trying to capture as many floating prizes as you can for points. You do this by climbing ladders to get to all the different platforms and jumping over sneakers, the little enemies around the screen. On the top platform is a tall sneaker called High Top. For each prize you grab, High Top will get a little shorter. When you've grabbed enough of them, a key will appear over him and you can end the level by jumping and touching it. Then you can start all over again with new prizes to get as high a score as you can. Fast Eddie is super simple, but actually surprisingly fun with a very approachable difficulty level. 7 out of 10. Mini Review. Frogger 2 3 Deep was a 1984 release by Parker Brothers for the Atari 2600. A sequel to the popular Frogger, Frogger 2 3 Deep once again pits you as a frog trying to get from the bottom of the screen to the top, although this time over multiple screens. The first screen has you underwater trying to get to the home berths on the surface. Fight the current and avoid obstacles to succeed. Exceptions are the turtle who will give you a ride and protect you, and the bubbles that rise from the bottom. Collect those for bonus points. The second screen has you on the surface in a more traditional hop on the backs of everything mechanic, trying to get to the flotation ring dragged by the ship at the top. Here you can eat lily pads for points. When you return to this screen, you can jump onto the large duck to be taken to the third screen, the sky. Eat flies for points and jump up to the center cloud berth, then do it all over again for points. While Frogger 2 is good, I don't feel like it captures the same charm as the original. 7 out of 10. It's a mini review. Home Run was a 1978 release for the Atari 2600. A really stripped-down baseball game, Home Run pits you against either a friend or a computer opponent in a full 9 innings of America's favorite pastime. When fielding, throw the ball by pressing the button and control its trajectory with the joystick. If the batter hits the ball, move your fielders to intercept it and then move to tag the runner. When at bat, simply move your joystick to swing. Base running is automatic, but if you want to ensure that the runner stops at a certain base, press the button. The titular home runs are comparatively rare, but that doesn't stop this from being a pretty decent time waster with a friend. It's far from a great baseball game, but for what the 2600 is capable of, I like it. 6 out of 10. Mini Review. James Bond 007 was a 1984 release by Parker Brothers for the Atari 2600. Easily the worst Parker Brothers game on the platform, in James Bond 007 you play as a secret agent himself, piloting his Lotus Esprit through multiple levels. Much like Moon Patrol, your car moves to the right and you can control your speed with the joystick. Jump by pressing up, and if you're in the water, dive by pressing down. Shoot by pressing the button, and if applicable, your shots will alternate between angled shots and arcing bombs. There are 3 levels, all with their own missions. Jump on an oil rig, destroy 3 satellites, or stop Stromberg from escaping his underwater base. This all sounds good, but it really isn't. Imagine if Moon Patrol sucked and you'll get James Bond 007. It feels very bare and it doesn't control very well. 3 out of 10. Mini review. Pitfall was a 1982 release by Activision for the Atari 2600. In Pitfall, you play as Pitfall Harry, whose goal is to collect as much treasure as he can within a set time limit. A platformer with over 250 screens to explore, you start with 2,000 points and 20 minutes to wander the jungle in search of treasure that includes gold bars, money bags, and diamond rings. The jungle is full of obstacles to overcome though, such as scorpions, logs, crocodiles, snakes, quicksand, water, fire, and tar pits. Some obstacles will only make you lose points, but most will cost you one of your 3 lives. A highlight is when you swing on a vine, a little Tarzan yell accompanies it. Play until you collect all 32 treasures, run out of time, or lose all your lives. The goal being to get the highest score that you can. Pitfall has never been my favorite, but it's certainly iconic and definitely fun. 7 out of 10. Mini review. Pitfall II: Lost Caverns was a 1984 release by Activision for the Atari 2600. A sequel to the popular Pitfall, you once again are Pitfall Harry, this time not only searching for treasure, but trying to rescue your niece and a feline friend. Here you have a much more expansive world to explore with a wide variety of enemies as well as new abilities. Gone are the swinging vines, but now you can swim and even use balloons to float to new areas. Most notably is a checkpoint system. There are crosses scattered throughout the world on the ground. After walking over one of these, if you die later, Harry will transport back to the most recent checkpoint you triggered, with a loss of points. Colorful, expansive, and with a great musical soundtrack, Pitfall 2 is an upgrade in every way to the original. 9 out of 10. Mini review. Raft Rider was a 1983 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. In Raft Rider, you play as a prospector floating down a river, trying to avoid hazards along your way. Move the joystick to maneuver yourself into what really ends up being set horizontal tracks. When you move, it is an instant. Moving up and down, there's a delay as your character moves his pole and you slide over to the new position in an arc. This adds a level of difficulty in navigating and makes your movements feel pretty authentic. There are flashing gold nuggets in the river that you can grab for extra points, but you can't just run into them. You have to move yourself so that they don't hit your raft, just the rider. Honestly, in most cases, they're just best to avoid like any other obstacle. Difficulty switches change the speed of the river and have either stationary or mobile moves. Raft Rider isn't bad, but lacks depth, so it's only good for about 10 minutes now and then. 5 out of 10. Mini review. Star Fox was a 1983 release by Mythicon for the Atari 2600. In Star Fox, no, not the Nintendo one, you play as a ship sent to recover energy crystals from the atmosphere of a planet. Similar to Defender, you mostly play in this gray area of the screen, roaming back and forth fighting enemy drones. Keeping an eye on the bottom of the screen, you'll occasionally see a crystal rise. Position your ship above it and then dive into the atmosphere to grab the crystal. While you're in this orange zone, you can't move side to side or shoot, so you're very vulnerable and will want to be quick. Continue to play like this until you lose all 3 of your lives as indicated under your score at the top left. Star Fox takes the Defender gameplay and removes pretty much all the fun from it. It's not good. 3 out of 10. There's a mini review on the radar. Subscan was a 1983 release by Sega for the Atari 2600. In Subscan, you play as a destroyer attempting to depth charge wave after wave of enemy submarines. At the bottom of the screen is a radar that will let you know what's coming your way. The compressed part of the radar is a playfield, so you can use that info to time your shots and potentially hit enemies as they come onto the screen. Moving back and forth across the surface, your depth charges fire an arc in the direction you're facing. Time your shots so that they hit the submarines as they descend. Easier said than done. At the top of the screen are 2 scores. The top is your score and the bottom is a bonus that increases with every sub you sink. To collect the bonus, you have to sink the orange sub when it appears. Play until you've missed 10 submarines, then you explode. Subscan is simple, but with some practice can be mastered. 6 out of 10. It's a mini review. Super Cobra was a 1983 release by Parker Brothers for the Atari 2600. A spiritual successor to Scramble, Super Cobra doubles down on that tried-and-true side-scrolling shooter mechanic. Your goal is to make it through 11 stages while navigating difficult terrain and enemy units such as rockets and artillery. Pressing the button shoots, and your shots alternate between a forward attack and a bomb that drops to the ground. Important to keep your eye on is your fuel. Bombing the fuel containers on the ground replenish your supply and is vital to making it far into the game. Not really a standout, but a solid game to play now and then. 7 out of 10. Mini review. Tanks But No Tanks was a 1983 release by ZMAG for the Atari 2600. In this battle game, you're the last remaining defender of your outpost, surrounded by enemy tanks. Maneuver around the screen and destroy the enemy one by one while also ensuring that they don't destroy your outpost, positioned at the bottom center of the playfield. The amount of tanks you have to kill in each stage is at the bottom of the screen just under your outpost. When this number ticks down to 0, you advance to the next stage. Play across 3 screens that increase in difficulty until you lose all 5 of your lives. Tanks But No Tanks is an awesome game, which is a shock from ZMAG. Always fun to play. 9 out of 10. Mini Review! Vanguard was a 1982 release for the Atari 2600. In Vanguard, you play as a pilot tasked with taking on the Gond, whose forces have been terrorizing your people. A multi-directional scrolling shooter, you pilot your ship through multiple stages facing a variety of enemies, some that move in standard patterns and others that shoot at you. The unique feature of Vanguard is that you can shoot in 4 directions. When moving sideways, you shoot forward and backwards simultaneously, and when moving vertically, your shots fire on that axis. Touching one of the blue E blocks will temporarily make you invincible, allowing you to ram enemies and kill them. Make it to the Gond at the end of the tunnel and shoot him to advance and continue to travel caverns until you lose all your lives. Vanguard is a solid shooter that offers something unique compared to other games of the genre. 7 out of 10.